obviously our deepest condolences go out, and our heartfelt condolences go out to the families who lost three folks who are military folks, who are brave, who are always fighting, who are fighting on behalf of this administration, of the American people. Obviously, more importantly, we lost those souls.
And you struggle to wonder why it is that nobody wants to join the military. 3 soldiers, 3 servicemen, dead, killed, KIA, and you refer to them as folks, and then you say that they served our administration. They served our nation, not an administration. Gang, I wanted to release this video on Wednesday, but I'm being forced to make it on Wednesday due to some things that have occurred recently. Don't worry, I'll still be back up here at least 2 to 3 days a week. And of course, the military movie reviews and history stuff is coming here real soon, but because of some things that have happened earlier this year, I've got to kind of delay things just a slight bit, but don't worry, it's on its way. The thing is this right here. We need to have a hard conversation on why it is that nobody actually wants to join. Now, we've talked about recruitment goals. We've talked about why it is that the military has an obesity problem right now. We've talked about the lowering of standards on this channel. Of course, there are some videos that I did take down, but those videos for the most part are still up. And of course, I also talked about the fact that they may or may not reinstitute a draft. Of course, if you let somebody like the Soviet go up there and share a tweet of Biden running his mouth about a draft, even though it's actually AI generated, this right here is another reason why is that people don't want to join. So as many of you may know, we recently had an attack where 3 of our men were killed overseas. Now, I have already talked about this in a video on my primary channel, John Claymore. Don't worry, I'll leave a link in the description box. And of course, I've talked about what it is that I think will probably happen as a result of this, and I don't really expect a whole lot given the fact that this current administration is just an angrier version of Jimmy Carter. So if something does happen, I expect it to be almost minimal and damn near stupid. The thing is this right here. Nobody wants to join. And then you get this report from military.com about white men not wanting to join. Now, I'm letting this entire thing scroll across, but it boils down to a bunch of, well, they don't want to join because of this, they don't want to join because of that. It's also down for black men and Hispanic men too. And of course, we've also heard the rumblings of people out there wanting to insert migrants into the military. Good luck with that, because you've actually got to legislate that one in, which takes 60 votes in the Senate. And of course, you don't have Congress right now. The thing is this right here. We're not looking too good for the future. There's another reason why it is that nobody wants to join. Even though you're seeing this photo of Biden, of course, at Dover, checking his watch as a 13, let's just say 11 Marines, a corpsman and a soldier, come off the plane. Of course, their families, and you guys can look up the whole situation involving Riley McCollum's family, and you can see all that. And of course, this guy also had the nerve to talk about his son, which, by the way, I'm not here to hit Beau Biden, but what I am here to say is that Beau Biden did not die in combat. He died here years later of cancer in his house, in his home, around his family. A lot of men and women who serve this nation don't always get that opportunity. Let's just go ahead and get that out there. But when you have an administration that appears not to care about those who serve, then guess what? People are not going to want to serve. Also, another thing to look at, and I've been working on this video for a while. Of course, I wanted to use a different medium to do so. But of course, there is this thing called a crisis in men. You have 2/3 of men right now that are not married, not single, not getting laid. And of course, 2/3 of women are in fact getting laid and are hooking up with that top 1%. So it's leaving a lot of men at this moment in time with nothing to do except work, and they're becoming good old-fashioned incels. That's not good either. It's going to create a very, very angry society. So you figure if there are no jobs around, of course, the numbers are oftentimes inflated, but if there's no jobs around, then obviously the military is probably going to be the next best option. But then when you look at news reports or you see people, let's just say casually, who don't know the actual numbers of what's going on, who's been killed, who's been wounded, then you might think to yourself, why the hell would I want to serve a Pentagon that acts like this?
And where?
I believe there was an attack earlier today. I don't have the exact location. We can get you that. I don't want to speculate, but we can get you that information after.
What's the total number of attacks now since October, and the total number of injuries?
Yeah, just a sec here. So from October 17th to January 29th, we are tracking approximately 165 attacks. That's 66 in Iraq, 98 in Syria, and of course, the one yesterday in Jordan. Oh, and I'm sorry, and on injuries, I am tracking approximately.
But it gets a lot deeper. The unaccountability, it's not just the unaccountability, it's the fact that, of course, the standards are being changed. And, of course, what I'm showing you now, the social justice warring of our military. Men don't want to join. It's not just white men. It's men of all colors just don't want to join. They don't want to serve an administration. They do not want to serve an administration that does not care about the nation that it leads. But it's not just the United States. It's also a European problem, too. And we'll get to that here in a second. But let's go back to how this entire thing started. Let's look at Mr. Milley, the first half.
I think it's important, actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university. And it is important that we train and we understand. And I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it. So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that? I want to find that out. I want to maintain an open mind here.
I want to understand white rage. Now, granted, this right here is an old clip. It's a very old clip, but still at the same time, I want to understand white rage. I understand that they did this in regards to 6-1. I have to say it that way because of the algorithm. You have to kind of flip things. You have to speak kind of funny. Don't worry, that will change once we start getting behind the microphone and not in front of the camera with the Rode microphone like I am right now. But the thing is this right here. If this right here is your primary focus and not the mission at hand of actually serving the people of this nation, then quite frankly, nobody's going to want to join. Not to mention the fact that you've got a military that right now has a leadership issue, that has a leader who is more interested in using our soldiers as bait than what the hell they are actually supposed to be, war fighters, then obviously people are not going to join. But let's listen to a little bit more.
Understand that, because our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians, they come from the American people. So it is important that the leaders, now and in the future, do understand it. I've read Mao Zedong. I've read Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist. So what is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend? And I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers, of being, quote, woke or something else because we're studying some theories that are out there. That was started at Harvard Law School years ago, and it proposed that there were laws in the United States, antebellum laws prior to the Civil War.
Now, what Milley said in this second half doesn't exactly sound too bad at first, because I'm not going to lie to you guys, in order for me to properly give you guys proper military history and proper, let's just say, military and movie reviews, some of which, by the way, are historical, I got to know some additional things too. I am, of course, as most of you guys know, and of course, we're not going to be speaking as much about this once we get behind the microphone. Ideologically, most of you guys who've been subscribed to my channel know exactly where I'm at. If you're subscribed to the John Claymore channel, you know exactly where I am. I am a card-carrying capitalist. I do believe in accountability, but obviously I'm socially conservative, economically moderate right. And, of course, to go on top of this when it comes to foreign policy, moderate right as well. You can go ahead and call me a right-winger if you want to. I really and truly don't care. I wear it on my sleeve. If you think it's going to bother me, if you come after me, go right ahead. I really and truly don't care. Here's the thing, though. Oftentimes, you got to look at ideologies, but is it actually important for U.S. officers to look into CRT, critical race theory? Is it actually important for them to look into Mao Zedong? Is it actually important for them to look into all this? I don't think it's actually the most important thing. Now, if you want to read the ideologies from some of these leaders like Hitler and Stalin, go right ahead and do so. I've got some of the books myself on their manifestos and, of course, their actual past, their ideology, and exactly what it is they're looking for. This is going to be a historical and military historian channel, a military historical channel, and, of course, it's not going to be the only channel that I create. I plan on having an actual network, so therefore you obviously need to know these ideologies. But I don't think it's that important for the men to know something that, quite frankly, is rooted in legal theory, that there being critical race theory. The whole Ibram X. Kennedy grift, by the way, is, for the most part, finally ended. But as I said before, it's not just here in the United States. It's also abroad. Let's listen to some of this.
But that's also another thing that's happened, particularly with the American military. And it's that rather than be in the armed forces as some kind of accreditation mechanism to then go and serve your country in another way, one of the benefits that's tied to the armed forces is we'll pay for your college. Well, also, college admissions for white men are not just disadvantaged because of DEI, but also the learning environment's not conducive to the way men like to learn. It's incredibly hostile social environment. So if they're trying to use that as a selling point to get white men to go into the military as well, they're going, well, I don't want to go to college either because you just hate me there too.
Mm-hmm. I think we do need military people in politics, don't we? Because
now, guys, that was only about 40 seconds from the podcast of the Lowe's Theaters, and there's a little bit more, but this whole thing about college. Now, I have made videos in the past, not many, a couple, and I plan on doing a bit of a redo to it where I've said that I think that you should actually have to earn your college degree. You have to actually earn your opportunity to go to college. I personally don't think that people should be allowed to go to college at the age of 18, that you actually need to work in the civilian world first for a little while because a lot of these kids go in there and they get radicalized by these instructors. Next thing you know, it takes them 4 years to learn on the real world exactly how things operate, and they're still angry. Then it takes another 4 to 5 years to deconstruct him. Next thing you know, we have a bunch of communists running around and a bunch of left-wingers. Sometimes it actually takes a little bit longer. But if somebody actually goes to the military, does some time in the military, and they actually at the same time also, or if they actually work a job for 4 or 5 years before going to college, chances are there'll be no more, let's just say that they probably won't be as radicalized because they would have already had some real-world experience and some experience dealing with other races. The thing about CRT is this right here. CRT actually works to divide the men, and quite frankly, we don't need that to happen. It hurts morale. The critical queer theory stuff also hurts morale as well. But this thing about college and tying your actual college and the people saying to themselves, well, they already hate us anyways, well, it's kind of pervasive in the mainstream media. Now, it's also possible that some of these men are not seeing this in their actual unit. But still, though, if the media is preaching this, if they're constantly using this narrative, then, of course, people are probably not going to want to join, especially white men, seeing how it is that they're your biggest demographic to pull from. Typically, when the United States military pulls men and women for military service, they tend to go to working class families because they tend to be the most patriotic, regardless of whatever political party they are associated with. It just so happens to be that there are a lot more of these families identifying with the Republican Party or the current iteration of the Republican Party, and that's kind of where we're at right now. If you keep this stuff up, after a while, you won't have a military. That's all I'm saying. And like I said before, I could hear people saying we could just replace them with illegals. Do you feel like having to teach all these men how to speak English? By the way, if you were in the military, and I'm not saying this to hit anybody who's Hispanic or anybody who's Brazilian or anybody who's from another country, because believe me, I serve with many men that are from different nations. By the way, they're all good. Sometimes Spanish remains the first language, even after being taught. And imagine getting into a situation where you need English spoken over the comm. Doesn't coordinate very well. Just figure I would say that.
Patriotic rights, the kind of people you expect to go and fight, were just producing propaganda posters about why they're not going to. And it all focused, obviously, here on immigration. But they're not the only ones. Carl made this point, which is, why would anyone want to fight for this country in the state that it is in? Why would anyone fight for Tony Blair's vision of the future? That's all they can promise you. More immigration, more debt, worse services, stagnant wages, decrepit towns. And they expect you to defend that. Yeah, that's a fair point.
I was also brought on GB News last Wednesday under the auspices of, are Gen Z too woke for war? And that is the standard line that is trotted out by the low-resolution boomer commentariat of, they're too fat, they're snowflakes. And I just said, well, sorry, you've indebted me for the rest of my life. You've deprived me of the ability to get a house like the boomers have. You keep importing net migration of over 700,000 a year every year, despite the British electorate for the last decade plus voting against it. The wars in Ukraine and Gaza, I don't feel particularly connected to, and especially the Ukraine one is being fought under false auspices. I don't feel connected enough to want to shoot some poor Russian conscript who wants to go home to his wife on behalf of a state that calls me a useless white male or the military-industrial complex's bottom line.
Well, it's not just Zoomers. I'm Gen X. I wouldn't. I'd just say, fine, send me to jail. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. There's a unifying aspect here, isn't there? I mean, I think this meme actually put its best.
Shortly after 6/1 here in the United States, the federal government thought that it was a good idea to go after anybody who had a Gadsden flag in their barracks room. And then now you see this thing where you have Democrats in Congress who suddenly say, you know what, we want to get rid of militias. You know, you have the right to own a firearm. You have the right to start one of those. I mean, it's not just for the militia or whatnot. We have to go through this all the time, what the Second Amendment is. I'm posting a copy of it right now from online so that way you guys can read it. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The European militaries were dealing with this as well. It's almost like a massive operation against men in general, because men tend to lean a little bit more conservative, especially white men. That right there is what it looks like to me. But let's watch just a little bit more.
Cannon fodder, you receive terrible bad things. Trade offer available. Do you want to take it? And obviously not. And the reason is because this country doesn't have its own people's interests at heart on any of those issues, obviously, but it goes on and on. And when we get into the realms of these kind of patriotic people, what they would usually do, I mean, it just gets comical. I mean, we've been over, for example, the police in their own misconduct hearings, just purging people because they say they've got right-wing stuff on their phone. Okay. There's the military.
In private messages, by the way, yeah.
Yeah, there's the military here. So this was a chap who was jailed for being a member of National Action in the military, and that's a terrorist group, so that's the law. But at the same time, they released this.
Yes.
And I don't know if you can scroll a little bit, John. My apologies if it's not big enough. But there's a document there that says right-wing extremism, and then it describes various things which could be warning signs. And some of them are literally, do they describe themselves as a patriot? Okay. Do they talk about multicultural towns as loss? Do they add Istan to British place names?
One of the most insane ones is my entire segment I just did. Do they claim that immigration is the root of injustices against vulnerable people, old age pensioners, and veterans? Oh, yeah, noticing grooming gangs against underage girls means you're a right wing extremist, according to the army.
The point being that, yet again, the state.
There's the media of this entire situation. Your current governments of the world don't care about you. Go back to the very first thing I said at the very beginning of the video. And let me go ahead and say this right here, too. The previous video that I did, which is on the Claymore channel, I talked about Victor Newman. If you know who this guy is, and he put out a tweet earlier, which I think he actually deleted, but I kept any of the video. I'm not so sure. If I can find it, I'll re-edit it back in. I'm praying for the people who died in Iraq. They didn't die in Iraq. You see what I'm saying? This is how out of touch these people are. They didn't die in Iraq. They died in Jordan. This kind of goes back to the very, very beginning. The people here at home, the people especially on the left, they're out of touch with the current military. They're out of touch with military veterans themselves. All right? And what's really, really funny, too, about the situation, it's not funny in a good way. It's funny in a bad way, is that the press secretary, whom, by the way, is a diversity hire, and they see everything through the lens of race, the Biden administration does. They called, as I said earlier, they called these three fallen servicemen, these three fallen soldiers, they called them folks, then said they serve the administration. They don't even care about those who are their own same color. Just figure out to toss that out there, seeing how it is that they want to see everything through the lens of race. Veterans, by the way, we don't see anything through the lens of race because you are all green. You are either light green, olive drab, medium green, dark green. Some cases, the Navy, you're blue. Just saying. Nobody looks through the lens of race when it comes to the military. Obviously, these people here do. And obviously, the mask is slipped because it's nothing more than a narrative because she couldn't even call them soldiers. Just think about that. These are here the reasons why it is that nobody wants to actually join our military as it is, especially under the current leadership. With that right there being said, guys, please tell me what you think. Gear issue 33. I just figured I'd throw this out here. There should be another video out on Sunday. I'm going to try to discuss the real-life Forrest Gump very, very briefly and ask the question if the character was actually a good soldier in film. There's probably going to be a copyright claim to come with that, but don't worry, I've got a few days to work on it. So make sure you guys please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section, and please tell me what it is that you think, and I'll see you guys later.